Thank you for staying with us. We'll continue the conversation. We're looking at the National Assembly, the leadership issues. What are they coming in there to do? Setting an agenda for them. What's the plan? At least over 200 new legislators are coming to the National Assembly for the 10th session. So how would that pan out for them? I mean, if you have over 400, a little over 400 legislators for the National Assembly and over 200 are new, what's the role of experience? How's that going to work out when you say experience is your best teacher? Would that make any difference there? But to help us understand and look at what's going to happen in the 10th National Assembly, we have here in our Abuja studio a legal practitioner, Mr. Victor Giwa. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much. Happy Easter.
And joining us virtually is Honorable Oluwole Oke, who's a member of the House of Representatives representing Obokun Oriade Federal Constituency of Osun State. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Oke.
Thank you for inviting me.
Let's start off with you straight away. The 10th Assembly, I mean the 9th Assembly is winding down and the 10th is almost in. What would you say are the plans, seeing that of all the members that are there, over half of those that will be returning in the 10th Assembly are new? What's likely to happen there?
The very bad scenario because we've lost some of our very experienced good lawmakers, and I will attribute this to poor party management and of course our level of development. It's a fact that we have to live with now. We have over 220 new members in the House. All the investments of the federal government of Nigerian people on those lawmakers that couldn't come back, has gone down the drain. That is just the truth of the matter. But here we are. We have to live with the fact that, yes, we have 222 lawmakers new coming to the parliament. I want to give it to majority of them that I've interacted with. Some of them are professionals in their own making. Some of them are members of the State House of Assembly. Some of them have been in the National Assembly before. I met some of my colleagues that we came in 2003, those who joined us in 2007 and that couldn't come back, those who contested election in 2015 couldn't make it back in 2019. So that is the situation at hand. But by and large, I am sure we will cope with the situation. You still have some old hands in the House who have institutional memory and who will play a great role in mentoring the new lawmakers.
You said you started by saying it's a bad situation, but now you've gone on to say that it's like a mixed breed of those who have been in the State Assembly. Some were there in the National Assembly and couldn't make it back, but they've returned now. But you still say a lot of the investment Nigeria has made in them will be lost. One would think that fresh ideas, new ideas coming will help to speed things up. And seeing that you have new, some political parties that were not there before gaining entrance into the National Assembly, or those who had maybe one or two representatives in the National Assembly now have more than one or two, increasing their numbers as well. One would think that will give the debate on the floor, whether the green or the red chamber, will give bite to the debate and make it more effective. What do you think?
The beauty of democracy is that given the scenario that we have in our country, we operate a multi-party system. Bonding Nigerians together in one or two parties might not be ideal for democracy. Multi-party system gives citizens options, to realize their ambitions and their potentials politically. But the aspect I'm talking about is about the cost investments of Nigerian people on the old lawmakers that couldn't come back because you may be a professor, a PhD holder, coming to the parliament, it's a different ball game together because there's need for you to familiarize yourself with the rules of the House. vis-a-vis provisions of our Constitution and various acts of the National Assembly that have been in place. No, that is the area that I'm thinking that we may be slowing down.
Well, I imagine that, eventually, people will be able to find their way around. This is the situation that we have, and this is the parliament that the Nigerian people have chosen. And I'm guessing that, they'll just have to make the most of it. So talking about making the most of it, Honorable, beg your pardon, Mr. Giwa, let me come to you. A lot of people will be looking at what is that the Ninth Assembly has done. There will be things that I'm sure a lot of Nigerians might still want the 10th Assembly to look into. Perhaps some of the leaves that were left unturned in the Ninth Assembly. Some people want the 10th Assembly to look at it. But first, they have to cross the hurdle of leadership. The rumor is now rife. We don't know how true this is, and really we don't deal in rumors, but in some instances, you can't just help but look at that scenario. The fact that the number of lawmakers in opposition are way more than the majority of lawmakers in one particular party, whom naturally should pick, select a leadership. But oftentimes, as I said, it's an independent parliament. They can select, it's left for them to pick leaders amongst themselves. And there's now talk that perhaps opposition parties, seeing their numbers in opposition, are looking to, strategize to see if they can also produce a leadership. Do you think that will work? Can it work?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it can work. One of the things we have been able to, what we have observed in the past, is the fact that when you get to the National Assembly, what is supposed to take center stage is national interest. It's supposed to be the believability of each of the candidates and its purpose and focus. What kind of candidate can provide the said leadership? Yeah, it is assumed that when a political party has majority, they should determine the leadership, but it doesn't play out here in Nigeria and from the past. What we have seen will be a lot of horse trading, a lot of arrangement, permutations. People will start to reach out to other, political parties. They start to, push for the leadership institute, the believability of the candidate, what he can do in terms of just opposing the particular candidate with the agenda, what they think they want to achieve for this country. So it's going to be a very dicey one. Nobody, like has been rightly pointed out, the opposition party, which is the ruling party, which is the APC, cannot really say that they will have, because we have seen, to some large extent where members of the ruling party have put themselves out to say, want to be the Senate president, and the speaker and all of that. It is not a fiat accompli, because like we have rightly observed too, that the members of the oppositions put together are more than the members of the ruling party. So there must going to be a serious horse trading. There's going to be serious engagement. People should be appointed based on their capacity, on their capability, and the believability by their own colleagues. And so when you get into the National Assembly, it is a different political game. The oppositions will want to also push their candidate. And looking at the election that brought up and brought out these persons, you will discover that Nigerians, the number of opposition candidates candidates in the National Assembly, or members of the National Assembly right now, because they are now members, is based on the agitations of Nigerians. This is the first time where we've had, like was mentioned by your commentator, that we have some new political party having members, for example, in the National Assembly. For example, in FCT, we are seeing a Labour Party. This is a seat that has been represented by PDP for the past 8, or if I'm not mistaken, more than 8 years. And now you are seeing somebody not from just the usual opposition, but from a Labour Party. So that person will be coming out with the different idea. There is a mindset. There was a reason why that particular senator has been elected. So she must now move with the agenda of the basis of which she was appointed.
Indeed,
and she's going to bring that into the National Assembly.
Do you think then, indeed, and I think that's what a number of lawmakers will try to do. I mean, she has already started trying to set the agenda for what she wants, what she hopes to achieve, and some of the things that she's hoping to push for in the National Assembly. I think she was speaking recently about, getting a mayor for the Federal Capital Territory, something that will, there'll be big questions as to whether that constitution, because it has to be a constitutional amendment, whether it's something that will even come up at all in the National Assembly. But she started speaking. The question is, for a number of people, do you think that this sort of politics, if people decide that, look, we're in the opposition, we're far more than the party, the ruling party, do you think that politics could overshadow whatever agenda? Because you now find people constantly maybe living on edge, watching their backs, etc., etc. Do you think that politics has a tendency to overshadow whatever agenda lawmakers might be bringing to the National Assembly?
Yes, it does, because like I said, that their emergence, their emergence as now members and the senators of the National Assemblies is principally based on what Nigeria wants. Agitation. People wanted to change. People were so dissatisfied with members, people who were there before now. People were not also comfortable with the conventional and established political parties. Even though the two major political parties are platforms within which you can gain political powers and political office. But people were saying, no, we need a change. We need to have people who can think differently. We need to have people who can align themselves with the aspiration of Nigerians. Now, I believe that you raised the point whether they can see muster that will. Now, one of the reasons why they should and they must is because most of them who are now members of the National Assembly, and yes, members of the National Assembly, came into that office based on the yearnings of the people, based on the agitation for a change. Most of them were not pushing by godfathers. Most of them came in because people felt that, look, we need you to be there. You have been able to connect yourself with our aspiration. You have been able to connect yourself with our expectation. And so most of them were elected on that basis.
Yeah, but never mind that, in the National Assembly, there's a ranking system which is used to produce leadership. And we have over in the House of Reps alone, over 222 new members. That's more than half. So a lot of the people who are coming in are first timers. Can they really be pushing for that sort of, agenda?
Yes, there's nothing new. There's a ranking system, but it is not a law. It is not a law that you must have been in the National Assembly for a particular years for you to achieve that. No. So what you need is just simple permutation and agitation that people should go to political party. But again, before I would like to make this comment, especially making reference to what the Honorable Mr. Oki said, talking about feeling bad about the fact that they have new weeks. With respect, I disagree with him. It is a case of having, so to speak, allow me to say it, having a bad coach who have stayed for so many years, and the owner of the club says, no, we don't want you again. So that you have been at a particular position for so many years, it's not a question of how long you have been there, but what have you been able to do? So if you have been there, that you have been in a position for so long, does not show that you are good, does not show that you have been able to deliver, does not show that you have been able to connect to the people. So when the people feels that, look, I haven't stayed this long, we have not been able to meet our aspirations, you should be sacked. And I think that's what has happened.
There are many reasons why, we always have this high attrition rates in our politics. Some people will say also you cannot rule out the rotational principle you also have in some states, whereby, some people do it's turn by turn, according to some local governments. Every politics is local, but I think Mr. Honorable Kim made his own submissions. Honorable, let me bring this scenario to you. I don't know if it's something that you have also heard, if it's something that you can put some fillip to, but how will it be for members of the 10th Assembly, this agitation or this, this story we're seeing, for instance, on the front page of the Vanguard this morning, opposition parties rally to seize control of NAS. That's the front page of the Vanguard. And before now, it's been on a number of other newspapers. I don't know whether you've seen it as well, and what it is that you are making of it as an old-timer in the National Assembly.
All the political parties, before the election, put up their candidates with the hope that they will have the majority of seats and to take over power vis-a-vis governance. But the situation we have at hand is that APC as the ruling party, yes, they have more members elect, but the truth of the matter is that put all other political parties together, they have more members than APC. We will be able to assess the true situation after the supplementary election, slated for the 15th of April. Then after that election, we'll have a very comprehensive position. But the fact remains that, yes, the opposition are coming together, and they're now greater in majority. So anything can happen in the parliament. That is just the truth of the matter.
Mr. Oke, this matter of leadership, so to speak, we know that there was a time when the opposition rallied themselves together and produced a leadership in the National Assembly that is contrary to what the leadership of the ruling party wanted. You don't see that playing out in this case?
Impossible.
I didn't get that.
It is not impossible.
Okay, but how do you think it will work out?
Well, if the minority parties can come together, but let me take you through the formation, the beginning of these political parties. NNPP, led by Dr. Rabi Musa Kwankwaso, stemmed from PDP. Labour Party, the presidential candidate, was a vice presidential candidate in the 2019 presidential election. In other words, both himself and his deputy, Dr. Dati Ahmed, were members of PDP before they left the party. So the point I'm trying to make is this: it is very easy for these three political parties to come together. And if you put the numbers together, all they need is to put, even SDP, I've looked at the members of SDP from Nasarawa, Honorable Gaza, and his other colleague, Honorable Dairu. They are members in the past. So if you bring them together, the fact remains that we have the same ideology. We've come together, over a long period of time. So it is very easy for them to come together, and they will have more numbers than the ruling party. And like I've said, it's a game of power. Everybody struggle. Nobody serve you power freely on the table. You snatch it. So anything is possible. That is just the truth of the matter.
What agenda do you think that will be set in for the 10th National Assembly? I mean, as a member of the 9th National Assembly and also looking forward to being inaugurated as a member of the 10th Assembly, are there things that you think that are a matter of priority for the 10th Assembly to immediately pick up?
Yes, national security, economy, power generation. These are the issues that really affect Nigerians. Nigerians can no longer go to bed with their two eyes closed. Economy, we've seen policy somersaults. Healthcare, education. We've seen our students being locked out of the universities for months over simple matters that can be sit down and discussed and iron out. You see, these are all the issues that we are suffering from, and there will be issues that we in the 10th Assembly will be focusing on.
Okay, let us hope that indeed that this agenda, but what precisely do you think that lawmakers can do about this? Is it a question of laws? I mean, because when you talk about, for instance, education, universities being shut down as a result of ASU strike or a result of government not meeting its own end of a bargain, thereby forcing lecturers to go on strike. What precisely do you think lawmakers can do about that? Is it something that laws can solve?
Globally, the legislature is a symbol of democracy. And I expect that in the Third Assembly, we will be looking at a process of, sharpening executive policies that they may evolve or bring to the parliament based on international best practices, experiences, and then sharpen their policies and then look at our laws and see if there's need for us to amend our existing laws, enact new ones, or repeal where the laws have become obsolete and unworkable. I think this is what we'll be doing in the 10th Assembly.
Mr. Giwa, let me come to you. I'm wondering whether you also see a room for, some people have also said that part of the frustrations a lot of people have, currently feels as a result of the elections which we've just finished, we've just conducted, and it has left many people feeling more frustrated than elated. And I'm wondering whether you think that this is a question of laws. Do you think that perhaps there might be need to look at the Electoral Act once more? Or do you think that this is now about us as a people?
Well, you see, we have never had a problem with our laws. Like Justice Oputa said in one of his rulings, the problem with Nigeria has never been our laws. Our problem has been the operators of our laws. Our problem has always been ourselves. Lack of political will, excessive corruption, abuse of office, lack of check, impunity. These are the major issues affecting Nigeria. Our problem, I think, should be too many laws. You don't need plenty of laws to govern a country. So in Nigeria, we have done amendment, representation. I mean, look at the Electoral Act that was just passed, Electoral Act 2022. Here we are. Simple express provision of the law. It is even sad that those provisions of the Electoral Act that were pushed, presented by INEC themselves, they find it difficult to apply that law expressly, not something that can be inferred. I'm talking about, if you want me to be specific, the section that says that they have within 7 days, under section, is it 54 now or so, if I'm not mistaken, that says, look, when the election is declared, you have within 7 days to review it. It is a new introduction to the electoral, process. Not one, with all this hullabaloo coming from the electoral process, no one, not a coalition officer, not a returning officer, has tried to even invoke that section. I was at the coalition center when those agitations were coming. So what I'm now saying is that it is not an issue of law. It is the political will. Nigerians, I really don't know. Like I said in some fora that sometimes before people get office, they think for themselves. But when they get into office, they seem to have people to think for them. So that is why maybe, when they get to offices, they start looking for people to think for them. And that is the cul-de-sac we have found ourselves. So our major problem has never been the law. Our major problem has been those things I've mentioned: lack of political will, corruption, abuse of office, and impunity.
Okay, at this point, we'll take a break. We'll be back in a moment. I'm sure that our colleagues in Lagos will be, firing their questions when we return from this break. Please stay with us.
If the party says that the Senate president should come from a particular zone, We have to look at it and see whether it is fair. The Senate president is not supposed to be a regional president. It's a Senate president of the Nigerian Senate in the United States, and that is the democracy we are trying to copy, and that is not what we are actually fully practicing. I see people coming to the National Assembly with nothing. And then suddenly, because they spend years in the National Assembly, they become rich. Something is wrong. You see civil servants living in houses of billions. Nobody asks questions. I've been saying that there should be Unexplained Wealth Act, so that if you display wealth that is not in tandem with their income, you should be investigated and it should be confiscated, and if it is extensive, you should be prosecuted. People should ask questions. Now you see what is happening. They are trying to buy the position. The position in the leadership of this country is becoming those that belong to kleptocrats and plutocrats. That's what I'm saying. Democracy is no longer
So
there.
they're already planning to buy this position?
They are buying it already. Didn't you hear the accusation that they are sharing money? Some people think that the more they have. And I was even thinking, even in the last election, if I had more money, I would have won. Yeah, I think Nigeria should put more pressure on us, the senators, and demand for what we are elected to be. We should put Nigeria first and Nigerians' interests first in even determining this so-called leadership that you are talking about. Because as for Senate, you are just a presiding officer. It's supposed to be one among equals, not first among equals. The problem now is we always put a Senate president and say he is first among equals. The rest will now be, distant to his gavel that you give him. He hits it up anytime. But he's supposed to be one among equals.
Well, welcome back. Let's continue our conversation on the incoming 10th Assembly. You're not forgetting that we still have a 9th Assembly, which has, some few months to go. We still have with us Honorable Wale Oke, who joins us virtually. He's a House member representing Obokun-Riade Federal Constituency in Osun State. And from our Abuja studio, Mr. Victor Giwa, who's a legal practitioner. Gentlemen, thank you for staying with us this Easter Monday. Honorable, let me come to you now. You're a fifth-time member of the House. For some, that is even a record in itself. And I wonder, yes, the talk about the leadership is on. We'll get to that in a moment and continue that conversation. But just how much faith do you think Nigerians have in the 9th Assembly, then moving on to the 10th Assembly, such that they would support you, take you serious? How much of performance did you show in this 9th Assembly to warrant another 4 years of trust from Nigerians? First, a lot of the members of the National Assembly are not returning. Yes, a lot of things happened during the primaries, but for some, that's even expression of no confidence in those members and at large the performance of the 9th National Assembly. So from where you sit, the experience in the 9th Assembly, do you think Nigerians still have faith in the National Assembly?
I believe Nigerians do. But one reality we need to actually face is the fact that the 9th Assembly did not actually enjoy the 4 years term that they ought to. We never bargained or planned for COVID-19 pandemic, but it came and it took almost 2 years off the 4 years time that we ought to have and enjoyed in the 9th Assembly. And it affected virtually every facet of our lives. And this is one fact that we all have to embrace and live with, So I believe that Nigerians have faith in the 9th Assembly and going forward, the 10th Assembly. Most of our colleagues that couldn't come back, not that they didn't perform or do well, like I observed earlier, that most members couldn't come back owing to party management, administration, local settings, rotation between one local government or the other. But you will agree with me that when you return your members, the society, the constituency is more likely to benefit more. So going further, I can assure you that Nigerians, have faith in the Ninth Assembly. We try our best under the leadership of Speaker Femi Bajabiamila, who has brought a lot of experience on board in the administration, the management of the Ninth Assembly. More bills, more laws were made. Part of it is this electoral act, that we put in place to ensure that Nigerians truly and indeed elect their leaders, except for the fact that some other factors, militated against what the electoral act sets to achieve. But I can assure you that Nigerians have faith in the Ninth Assembly vis-a-vis the upcoming 10th Assembly. They've made their choices, they've elected their members, and we just have to, move on.
It's interesting the point you made. Let's talk about this, the build-up now. The point you made about so far the minority parties, now the opposition parties are more when you sum them up in the House of Representatives, 162 for the APC, and all other parties, 163, at least the figures that the INEC chairman spoke about. So just one ahead. We'll wait for the supplementary elections, naturally, to see how that plays out. But we've seen the movements now. You believe that some of these parties have their roots in the PDP, but don't forget that the deputy speaker had a meeting with the governor in your party, Governor Wike, and Governor Wike was said to have said, he will support the leadership of the party at the national level, and he described Honorable Wase, as someone who is experienced, that the House does not need a greenhorn. So to that extent, it looks like your party has a lot of challenges, even in-house. So how well would you be able to marshal in-house, and then by extension, other opposition parties to maybe rally around and have a say in this leadership emergence process?
You see, politics is very dynamic in nature. Yes, I agree that our deputy speaker visited our leader, Governor Wike, and they had that banter and exchange. The fact remains that some other aspirants may also visit Governor Wike, and then you probably have to listen to what he has to say. In PDP, I will admit that we have our issues, but in Yoruba land, in my culture, is when two elders have their issues, the younger ones, are taught not to dabble into it, because when they resolve their issues, you may not be there. I'm sure we'll get over all our problems, we'll resolve our problems, and I can assure you the journey for 2027 election has started. And like I observed earlier, that these three other political parties, two other political parties, NMPP and Labour Party, stem from the PDP. And I can assure you there's likelihood that we'll come together if truly we want to take power in 2027. So it's a very dynamic situation. And as we progress, you see what will happen. That some of us may have learned our lessons and we have seen the reason to come together and bond together properly to be able to take over power.
Well, Honorable, the elder and children analogy, I don't know if you're describing yourself or people in the National Assembly as the children in this case, because clearly looking at the age, some of you are even older than some of the governors and all of that, but perhaps I'm stretching that analogy too far. But let me go to Mr. Giwa in our Abuja studio and get his thoughts on this. So what we saw playing out in the presidential election, the G5 governors, for example, in the PDP, the kind of work they did and how we saw the elections come out, the Labour Party factor as well, which we saw play out a lot during the presidential election. Are we likely to see that play out in the emergence of leaders for the 10th Assembly as well? I just referred to that meeting the Deputy Speaker of the APC had with Governor Wike of the PDP, where he said he was going to support the leadership of the party at the national level.
Yes, thank you. It's going to play out. There will be a lot of permutation. There will be a lot of engagement. There will be a lot of consultation. There will be a lot of horse trading. There will be a lot of discussions, engagement with other political parties. Like the Honorable said, there are some political parties that have some common grounds. Most of the members-elect and senator-elect that are from other political party carpeted because of the disenchantment with certain issues within their former political party. For example, like he made reference to the case of Nasarawa State, the SDP, most of them came from the PDP and other political parties. In some states too, we saw people who won in elections under the Labour Party. They actually came out from PDP. So, but you will see a lot of engagement. You will see a lot of horse trading. You will see a lot of consultation. You will see some cross carpeting. People moving from people being a member of a political party, but are moving and pushing the agenda of other political party. They will just retain their position as a member of the party that brought them in, but actually they will be doing the agenda of other political parties. So it is allowed, it is horse trading, it try to harangue their members, they try to connect. So it is likely going to, we are likely going to see that playing out, people having contact, a connection with their other, former political party or their affiliate political party, if I can use that word. You will see the issue of horse trading. You will see promises. You will see, Nigeria political parties, especially in National Assembly. You will hear cases of, being a chairman of a juicy committee. When I win, when you vote me, I will make you a chairman of this juicy committee, and all of that. So you will see that playing around, not mostly for for the interests of the country, but some of them will be mostly for their personal aggrandizement. Yes, you will see such consultation.
Mr. Giwa, let's now look at those consultations vis-a-vis, the zoning agitation. And we find that in the Senate and in the House of Representatives, when you touch on the Senate, you hear names like Honorable Undume, whom we just heard earlier on. You hear names like Senator Osita Izuna, so you hear names also like, Senator Ojus or Kalu. And at the Senate, the agitation is that it should go to the number 3 position should go to the Southeast. And in the House of Representatives, you hear names like Honorable Yusuf Gagdi. You hear especially the Deputy Speaker, Idris Wase. So when the agitation for Southeast, the Senate presidency should be zoned to the Southeast, clashes with merit, which should take precedence, and how should the party manage it? So when you talk of ranking, for instance, Honorable Ndume, who is also in the race, is also interested in the race. At the House of Representatives as well, other zones are interested. Honorable Peter Akpatasin is also a ranking House of Reps member. Yusuf Gagdi is also a ranking House of Reps member. So when merit clashes with that ranking rule at both houses, which should take precedence, and how should the party manage it?
Good question. I think in making the analysis or analogy of these issues, consideration needs to be given to the circumstance. One, the tempo or the status of the nation, the feeling of the nation, the unity of the country, the agitation of the people, the need to have a united Nigeria, the need to appeal to certain persons and certain groups the need to address the dissatisfaction in the system. And so what do I mean? When issues of states, region, conflicts with merit, the proper thing to actually look at is to look at the merit, because Nigerians and Nigeria have suffered as a result of political compensation. What I mean by political compensation, we have seen a system where people are made to occupy certain office or offices based on the region they belong to. Now, looking at the region they belong to, the question you will ask is, what have they been able to bring to the table? Have they been able to address national issues? Have they been able to solve the fundamentals? Because Nigerian problem has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with tribes. It has nothing to do with, and I will say what I mean. Poverty in the Northeast, poverty in Borno State does not take the toga of being a Christian. People in Borno State, the richest people in Borno State and that in Enugu State, you cannot bring each of them and say, oh, you are poor because you are a Muslim. Or the guy in Enugu State, the poorest of the poor in Enugu State is poor because he's a Christian. He's not poor because he's from the Southeast. He's not poor because he's an Igbo man. The man that sells, the ladies that sell tomatoes in Lagos, in Ajegule, that have about 5 of his siblings sleeping in one room, they are not there because they are from the South. They are not in that issue. Out of school children in the North, it's not happening because they are Muslims. It's not happening because they are from the Northeast. The same problem in the North is happening in the South. It's in the West. It's in the East. So what I am saying, therefore, that in exercising whether you are coming from a particular region, emphasis should be to what can you do from the country? What is your alienation? What directs your actions? What do you put into consideration when you are taking the activities of your state? What is your precedent? You don't make somebody a leader whose precedent and history has been questionable. If you want a particular candidate from the Southeast or from the Northeast, the question we must ask ourselves as a political party, because your question is, what will the political party do? Is what are they bringing to the table? What is this person's history? What did he do in the past? What can he do now? What is his understanding about the peculiar problem in Nigeria? If Nigeria as a country is like an hospital, we be in the emergency unit. Nigeria needs a country a united country. Nigeria needs people who can give us a sense of direction. Nigeria needs people who can connect to them. Nigeria does not need people who have a landlord mentality. People who believe that, yes, because I belong to a political party, I'm entitled to this position.
It would seem
so we must not have people with a...
It would seem a tough nut to crack, and it will get members of the National Assembly as agitated as you are speaking right now. And I imagine, Honorable Oke, that you'll also be interested in contributing to this part of the conversation, being a member-elect yourself. And while you're doing that, if you're interested, I'd also like you to speak to this. The President-elect has met with members of the National Assembly, and one of the very important things that he said was that he has no preferred candidate for the leadership positions of the National Assembly. I wonder if the National Assembly members and indeed Nigerians should be taking that as face value, considering how important the work of the leadership of the National Assembly is, to the success of the executive. And we've seen, testy times for the relationship between both arms of government in the past. We can cite the Electoral Act 2022, for instance, from this outgoing dispensation. And you can also tie that with the meeting that one of the aspirants of the speakership position had with the governor of River State, who, of course, sort of endorsed him. So should we be taking such, subtle approvals at face value, particularly the position of the president-elect, when he says that he has no preferred candidate?
I think the emphasis should be on programs, policies, national interest, and not about where one person or the other comes from. However, we admit that Parliament across the globe runs on certain principles, conventions and practices, and of course, laws. Ranking is one of the major principle that the Parliament operates on. In a more advanced nations like in the US, the speaker by default may have emerged, and that would have been Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila, because he's the incumbent speaker. His party has more members, but not absolute more members. Like Barrister Giwa observed, there can be negotiation or trade and all that to get the required numbers of members to be re-elected. But like I have said, I will prefer a situation where we look at programs and policies that will benefit Nigerians generally. From my experience in the Parliament, I've seen speaker being zoned to one zone or the other, and you can ask those zones what they have benefited from such exercise. But what is important will have been programs that Nigerians will benefit from, irrespective of where they come from, rather than talking about sacrificing merit on the altar of zones. At the end of the day, you don't get anything out of it. Just like you observed, maybe compensating people personally with their personal gains and all that. But when it comes to society benefiting from a government, I think it is better to put people to consider competence, capacity, experience, and people who can deliver the job. And when you put in place good programs that Nigerians benefit from, let me give you an example. Look at the social investment program of President Muhammadu Buhari. It's a very fine, beautiful program that Nigerians would have benefited from, but it was not implemented properly. There was no law, there was no rule of engagement, there was no law guiding it. It's one of the best. It's one of the best programs that the government actually brought on board, where Nigerians, the poor people, the underprivileged Nigerians will benefit from. But look at the implementation. It was not properly handled. There was no rules of engagement. So policies and programs of government is what we should focus on, and who can deliver the job, rather than looking at where Mr. ABC comes from. The president-elect, like you observed, look at him. It's not that as if a majority of his party leaders wanted him to be their candidate, but he fought his battle, and he has the competence, he has the experience, and then he won the primary. And then, of course, the election itself is before the court, so I don't want to talk much about it. I don't think zoning was the basis of his election, even our party as well. I don't think it's also zoning. I don't think zoning was the base of election. And it was more of who was able to manage the situation to emerge as the candidate of the party. So as far as I'm concerned, yes, I want us to consider ranking, experience, capacity, rather than talking about zoning. And I don't think zoning will work under the current dispensation.
Okay, Honorable. Staying with you, since you talked about this matter of laws, and I do remember that Mr. Giwa said Nigeria's never had issues, and he's a lawyer, so he should know. He said Nigeria's never had issues with laws, but it's about the implementation of these laws, and I mean the enforcement and indeed implementation of these laws. You talked about laws to guard or to guide the implementation of certain policies of government. I do know that in the Constitution it says that the number one assignment of the government is the safety and welfare of its citizens. Now, if that is already there in the Constitution, do we need more laws? Does the 10th Assembly need to come in and do more laws to ensure that, like the policy you talked about, the social welfare policy of the government, which you say, in your words, was not properly or was not effectively carried out as it should? Do we need more laws?
Dynamic society. When in 1999, when our constitution, the Grand Norm, was signed into law, there were developments, and if you look at that time till now, there have been changes in society. And so when you have new development in society, and we're also a member of the global community, so there may be need for us to think with our laws to make sure that we operate in tandem with best international practice that has evolved. So you cannot really close our gates to lawmaking. Of course, the purpose of having a parliament in place is to also make laws. So if you are saying that we shouldn't make laws because we have some laws on ground, then it means we have no reason to put in place
But real quick, shouldn't the legislature be thinking of how to ensure that the laws made as they are followed through and implemented? Shouldn't that be what the legislature is looking at instead of tinkering and making more laws?
Yes. You know, in the House, we have a committee called Legislative Compliance in both chambers. Their mandate is to ensure that our laws are complied with. So, but that notwithstanding, my position is that if there is need for us to make laws, subsidiary legislation, for us to ensure that the laws that we had in place are complied with, we shouldn't close our eyes to it.
Okay, let's get Mr. Giwa's closing thoughts here. Mr. Giwa, your closing thoughts.
Well, I just feel that in terms about the agenda for the National Assembly, the National Assembly had issue of stabilizing the legislative activities and fostering national development. What should be the agenda for the 10th National Assembly is the unity of the country, security, reduction of poverty, raising the youth, reducing or curbing the youth unemployment level, unification of the country, and ensuring that when Nigerians are given what they deserve, the issue of where you come from, the religion you belong, will not be an issue. The National Assembly should set an agenda that will bring into unification of this country and national development.
Thank you very much. Mr. Victor Giwa is a legal practitioner, and he joined us here in our Abuja studio. Thank you for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
He joined us virtually. Honorable Oluwole Oke, who is a member of the House of Representatives, also re-elected to go into the 10th Assembly. Congratulations again. And thank you for coming on the show this morning.
Thank you.
Sunrise will be back. Sunrise Daily, rather, will be back in a moment. Please don't go away.